The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
O God, we begin by giving thanks for this gathering of public servants. We appreciate the gifts that each person present here today brings and the commitment to share these gifts for the good of our state. We give thanks for the freedom to decide and to govern and to represent the people of Minnesota. Give us patience to hear each other, strength and endurance to be productive, insight to understand deeply, creativity to solve problems, humor to take the edge off of conflict, and most of all, wisdom to reach decisions for the good of all. We hope and pray that our work here today will honor the people that have placed their trust in us. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Reverend Mary Kitchell from Silver Lake United Methodist Church in Oakdale, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. The clerk will take the roll.
I'm all right.
The clerk will close the roll.
Mr. Speaker?
A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 89th session, 46th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Friday, April 24th, 2015.
There being no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. There's a copy of this order of business on each member's desk. If there's no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and the substitutions will be made. Representative Yaruso, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Overnight, there was an earthquake of magnitude 7.8 in Nepal. It spread, it has effects in Nepal, Tibet, and in northern India. There are on the order of 1,000 people that have died that they know about so far. Much of this region, of course, is extremely remote. Some of the dead include climbers on Mount Everest, so you get an idea of the extent of that. So I wonder if we could request a moment of silence for the dead in the mountains there.
Members, please rise for a moment of silence. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business has been placed on each member's desk. A minority report has been filed on House File 848. We will act on all other committee reports first and then act on the report on House File 848. If there's no objection, the reports, with the exception of House File 848, will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. We will now act on House File 848. The clerk will report both the majority and the minority reports pursuant to our rules, and we must take action on the minority report first.
Knobloch from the Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred House File number 848. Reported the same back with the following amendments, with the recommendation that when so amended, the bill be placed on the general register. Minority report. I, the undersigned, being a minority of the Committee on Ways and Means, recommend that House File number 848 be amended as follows and placed on the general register. And the minority report is signed by Representative Lincheski. Lincheski moves that the minority report on House File number 848 be substituted for the majority report and that the minority report be now adopted.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Lincheski, to your motion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, good morning. Members, right now I'm providing you with an alternative tax bill. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Lincheski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, on your desk is the minority report to the Omnibus tax bill, and I hope you will join me in providing significantly more tax relief to most Minnesotans that is in the current Omnibus tax bill. Members, the Omnibus tax bill that has been brought passed through Ways and Means, first of all, just has too big of a target. And while we in the minority don't think it's appropriate to have a $2 billion tax cut, we would prefer to see money going to education and other critical services in our state. We do want to, since the majority has set a budget resolution and we must live within that budget resolution, we want to provide you with an alternative tax bill that you can vote for here today and provide significantly more property tax relief, income tax relief to Minnesotans than is in the majority's omnibus tax bill. Members, just a few items in this minority report before you vote that you might be interested to know about before you take this vote. This minority report provides for phasing in the Social Security tax exemption faster than is in the omnibus tax bill. It makes the middle class tax cuts, the income tax exemption and dependent provisions permanent as opposed to a 2-year tax cut. It turns them into a permanent tax cut. It provides Representative Isaacson's bill, which increases the elderly exclusion for our seniors for individuals who benefit very little from Social Security tax exemptions. We also increase the working family credit, similar to the governor. We have the governor's provision that Representative Bernardi carried through the committee on the dependent care credit. Members, we do not cut local government aid. If you don't want to vote to cut local government aid, today is your vote. You can vote with the minority, and you will not be cutting local government aid to anybody. We actually increase local government aid. We increase county program aid. We increase the circuit breaker, which members know 95% of homeowners qualify for. So this is property tax relief to all Minnesotans. We actually increase the renter's credit as well, so folks who rent will also get property tax relief. Additionally, members, this is also your opportunity to deal with railroad safety, as Representative Marquardt and the governor proposed, and that's in here. We have tax credits for folks on the range, for folks who may get laid off given the situation that's happening up there. We have a tax credit for those people. We also provide for American steel to be used in our projects in Minnesota. Some of the items that we dropped in the bill, members, is for those who've heard from people who are vapors, who do vaping. We dropped those provisions, so that part of our the Minnesotans who have been upset about that in the bill, that's no longer in the bill. We also dropped the private school subsidy, the voucher subsidy, and the K-12 credit, so that's no longer in the bill. Additionally, we introduced a new provision that will allow all of you a chance for the first time to vote for federal conformity next year. Many of you know that we will not be in session likely at the time that we will be needing to conform to the federal tax code so that Minnesotans can receive federal tax cuts that Congress will be enacting again when we leave. Generally, we try to do that as you did this year, and I thank Chair Davids for that. We got that done with every member voting yes in a bipartisan way. We did that right when we came in this year. Everybody is pointing to the fact that we won't be here in January and February, so if you vote yes right now, you will have already taken care of that, and all your folks who will be filing next year will get their tax cuts as is contemplated. A couple changes that some folks like and some don't, and that is we're not giving the estate tax cuts to the folks who are right now in current law, only about 800 estates file for that tax relief. Representative David's bill gets that down to only 200 estates would pay that tax over a year. So we're asking those wealthiest Minnesotans to stay at the current law, which we enacted last year, which is you get up to a $2 million exemption, not a $5 million exemption. And again, members, those are the wealthiest folks in the state of Minnesota. We're also taking the corporate tax cuts for big business and for corporations out of the bill to instead give that money to middle-class Minnesotans through permanent tax cuts. We do leave in the tax cuts for small businesses, and that is a bill that Representative Hertas had that said that you will get your first $500,000 of value exempt on the CI property tax. We also leave the cabin tax cuts in there. So remember, there's a lot of things in there. One other thing that's omitted is we have removed the transportation dedications. We think that's robbing the general fund and creating future deficits. Also, by removing the expensive part of sort of the skyscraper tax cuts, we're taking that $4.5 billion unsustainable deficit spending into the future out of this bill. And so, members, there's a lot going on in this bill, but if you had your provisions on either side of the aisle for local things like tax increment financing districts, local option sales taxes, exemptions for nonprofits, there were all kinds of members that Chair Davids graciously put in his bill. Those are all still in this bill. So you don't have to worry that if you vote with the minority now to provide middle-class tax cuts instead of large corporate tax cuts, you don't have to worry that you're going to give up on your provision. You'll actually get to vote for property tax relief that isn't in the omnibus tax bill other than for some farmers. We've kept Representative Drazkowski's provision for farm property tax relief as it relates to school levy referendums. That's still in here. But instead, we passed property tax relief for all Minnesotans through the increased circuit breaker and renter's credit. And members, this bill in total still costs less than the bill that you will have the opportunity to vote on next week. We hope we've convinced you, and instead you'll vote with us here today, and this will be the new omnibus tax bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
I move that we lay the minority report on the table.
Representative Pepin moves to table the minority report.
Mr. Speaker, roll call.
A roll call has been requested.
Oh, you did.
Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. That is a non-debatable motion. The clerk will take the roll on the motion to table. The clerk will close the roll. There being 72 ayes and 55 nays, the motion prevails and the minority report is laid on the table. The question recurs on the adoption of the majority report for House File 848. Hearing no objection.
No. Yes. We are
Representative
objecting.
Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I would ask that you vote no on adoption of this committee report. I think that Representative Lincheski, and I want to thank her, did provide us with an important chance to say where our priorities are with regard to the budget targets that you've decided on and the tax bill target that you've decided on. I want to make it very clear that we believe the priorities in your budget are wrong, particularly because of the bill that we're going to be taking up next on the floor today, the education bill. What you've decided to do with such a massive tax cut, what you've decided to do with reducing taxes instead of investing in education is to leave our school districts far, far behind. I see Representative Uglum sent out some information about the impact on his school district that's going to see over $21 million in reductions as a result of the education bill that I assume he's going to be voting for today. We could have made a different choice, and we believe we should have made a different choice. We believe we should actually be investing in our future and in our kids. But if we are going to embrace a tax cut at the level that you're talking about, we shouldn't be focusing on corporate tax cuts like you do in your bill. Significant, massive corporate tax cuts, far outweighing anything that's going to go to the middle class going into the future. We should focus on the middle class tax cuts that Representative Lincheski had in her minority report. You had the chance to take that vote. You had the chance to provide property tax relief to homeowners and to renters instead of big businesses. That's the choice you made when you voted no on the Lincheski report. And I would also say if that tax bill that Representative Davids that we're voting on right now were fully phased in, you know, we've been talking about the tax bill being $15 in tax cuts to every $1 we invest in education. If it was fully phased in this year, we'd be voting on, and you are going to be voting if you vote yes on adoption of this report, $29 in tax cuts for every $1 you're going to invest in education. That is so fundamentally unbalanced, so bad for the future of this state. Members, I would recommend we vote no on this bill. We send it back to Representative Davids. We go to Chair Knobloch. All of you go to Chair Knobloch and beg him, let's find some more money for education, and we can find, you know, even if it's Even if you cut $500 million out of your tax cut, so you're still doing $1.5 billion, you could actually invest in education. But you've made a different choice, members. You're going to leave our kids behind when you vote later today. You're going to favor huge, big corporate interest, the outstate owners of skyscrapers, the Mall of America owners, Walmart, all these people that don't even live in Minnesota. That's who you're giving these tax cuts to. Let's focus on Minnesotans, members. Vote no on this adoption of this committee report, and I'd like a roll call if I could.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion on the adoption of the report. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on adoption. The clerk will close the roll. There being 72 ayes and 55 nays, the report on House File 848 is adopted. Second reading of House Files.
Second reading, House File number 848.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate Files.
Second reading of Senate File number 878.
Second reading.
Second reading, Senate File 1458.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House Files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House Files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 2270 through 2273.
First reading, House File 2270 through 2273. Representative Pepin.
Members, I move a recess to the call of the chair, approximately 1 p.m. Rules will meet in the basement hearing room immediately following session, and then Republican members will meet in room 5. So rules in the basement, Republican caucus in room 5.
Anzels. The member from Itasca, Representative Anzels.
Personal privilege, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of personal privilege.
Mr. Speaker and members, what we've just heard is another assault on rural Minnesota, northern Minnesota, all of us who have 4, 5, 6 hours to get home for a day, day and a half, 2 days, to be with our families and our constituents and go to Mass on Sunday. This is outrageous. Let's get the business of this House done. The people expect the people's House to get the people's work done. Let's do it now. No delay, no gimmicks. Let's get our work done.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask for a roll call on this motion.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
If the majority leader would yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Pepin. Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we talked last night, whenever time we left, a little bit after midnight, the understanding of our caucus was that we would be coming in at 11 and getting right to our work, that we would come in, and so we all got here at 9:30 to caucus and go through the bills that we're going to be taking up today and get our work done. And so I don't quite understand what's going on. And the fact that you didn't even give us notice that you were going to change the schedule is a little bit frustrating as well. I think Representative Anzels is absolutely right. I mean, there's no reason for us to be kept away from our families today. We can get to this education bill right now. Everybody knows what's in the bill. Everybody understands the implications of the bill. So I don't know why we need to take any more time. I mean, I could understand if you just wanted to break for rules for 5 minutes and go down and adopt the calendar for the day. That would be one thing. But to break for another hour and a half when we waited, I don't know, 6 hours yesterday after we came in to start the session, I think it's unfortunate. So I guess I didn't have a question there, I do have a question, Mr. Speaker, and that would be, can you tell us what bill we're actually going to be taking up when we come back from recess?
Representative Pepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Minority Leader Thiessen, we will be taking up the Omnibus Education Bill, House File 844.
Representative Thiessen.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd urge members to vote no on the motion to recess, and let's get started on the bill.
Clerk will take the roll on the motion. Clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 55 nays, the motion prevails and the House stands in recess to the call of the chair until approximately 1 p.m.